Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. Welcome back, friends. Today's episode is with a new Turquoise Talk guest, Staci Wallace, and you're really going to love not only the tips that she shares on entrepreneurship and like if you're just trying to get to your first 100K in your business, but her stories of miracles in her life, stories of how God moved in her life. It was just a really powerful episode. And when we got done recording, the first thing she asked me was, first she complimented me on just how well I, interviewed, and I forget the exact words she used, but just complimenting me on being a podcast host and how easy it was to do the episode. And I do get that quite a bit, which is always interesting to me because I still feel like I'm only 2 years in, but I'm just super curious about people and want to get down to the nitty gritty and hear their stories. But then she asked another question and she said, "What can I do for you? How can I support you right now?" And such a simple question, but such a powerful question, especially coming from someone who I just met. And it's a question that I think we all need to be thinking more about in our day-to-day interactions with those that we love, those that we don't know, first-time connections with a person in your business, maybe, or your profession, like just coming from that place of service. I don't know, it just struck a chord with me. And I think it's definitely encouraging me to ask that question to my guest on my show at the end as well. Like, what can I do to support you and how can I help you? Because as entrepreneurs, especially if you are a solopreneur right now and you feel like you're on an island all by yourself, number one, you don't have to be. There's so many resources, people like Staci, people like myself who are here to support you. So you're choosing to be on an island. There's free resources like podcasts. So I'm not even saying you have to invest thousands of dollars to get the support you need right this second. But I just really appreciated that. And I want you to know that I'm here to support you. And you can send me a DM on Instagram. You can send me an email, just letting me know what you need, what support you need. I'm always here for you for that. And hopefully you're finding that here on the podcast. But if there's something else specifically, maybe there's a topic you're like, I really wish you would dive into that or find guests to talk about this, just shoot me a DM and let me know. And I'll be happy to get some experts or I can dive into those topics as well. Okay. So a little bit about Staci. She is an 8-time author, speaker, entrepreneur, and CEO of Fueled by Fire, a global consulting and training company focused on equipping CEOs, entrepreneurs, organizations, and individuals with skills, mindset, intelligence, and technologies needed to build purpose-driven, faith-based, and highly profitable lives and businesses they love. Staci has shared the stage with 5 U.S. presidents, scaled companies from scratch into the hundreds of millions, and has worked with tens of thousands of small businesses, startups, and CEOs. She has been recognized as a leading expert on mindset, growth hacking, and business development, while her Fueled by Fire mastery and mastermind programs have helped thousands of leaders discover their divine mandate, repair broken marriages, and grow existing businesses into 6, 7, and 8-figure success stories. Her 1% method of micro progress, as featured in TEDx, has become a catalyst of growth behind the Fueled by Fire 12-month university model and scholarships program. Her international team of certified coaches and trainers are helping entrepreneurs and individuals achieve the highest levels of personal and professional performance. To download Staci's latest book that we talk about here on the podcast, you want to go to Staci Wallace, Staci with an I, Wallace.com/fire. We'll have all of these in the show notes for you. But get ready for a Fueled by Fire episode with Miss Staci Wallace. Welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remix podcast. I'm your host and CEO, Martine Williams, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And today we have another amazing Turquoise Talk guest to come on to share about her journey and share just all of her expertise in building businesses. She's the author of, is it 8 books, Staci? Did I read that right?
Yes, I know.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So thank you so much, Staci Wallace, for coming on to the show today and just spending some time with our audience.
Well, I'm excited to be here. It's going to be fun. We were just shooting the breeze about weather out there versus here in East Texas. And it seems like it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
It is. It is. So for those that don't know you, and I'm kind of just getting to know you as well, tell us a little about you, your family, where you live right now, and just, how and why you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah, well, I'll start at the end and then work our way back. My husband and I, we now work full-time together. I'm the CEO of Fueled by Fire. We are a global consulting and coaching firm where we work with elite CEOs that are scaling 7, 8 figures and 9. My husband and I, we have 35 years of business experience, raising companies into the hundreds of millions and building sales teams that top over 250,000 people. So over the course of our last 35 years of building businesses, we've had some tremendous success, but it all started way back when I was just a little girl, about 16 years old. And I now have 2 kids, 22, 23, Peyton and Alexia. They're both entrepreneurs. They work inside of our company as well as have their own entrepreneurial endeavors. And we've got chickens. We live on a 62-acre ranch that we have a nonprofit organization. We rescue and restore the lives of women and girls that have come out of trafficking and abuse, molestation, domestic violence. And so we got to a place in our life in 2017 where we felt we were very blessed financially. We were doing better than we've ever done in our lives economically. And I had a dream that God told us to give it all away and feed the poor until we gave away our home. I mean, everything, our car, cars. We went for 9 months without our cars, and with giving all our money away, sold our home and ended up getting into an RV. And it just so happened that was 2020 when we got the RV, and it was the best year of our lives because we weren't locked down. So right. That's a very, very short capsule version of an amazing season of our lives. But it goes back to when I was just a young girl. My dad was a preacher and I was a singer. And he said, baby, you're going to have something besides singing because music is an ebb and flow, feast or famine. Yeah. And so he said, I really encourage you to start with mom and dad in our little side business here. And it was selling water filters. I don't know any 16-year-old or 18-year-old girl that wants to sell water filters, but I couldn't do it till I was 18. And when I turned 18, I started selling water filters door to door. And I had to borrow money to get started. And I ended up, by the time I was 21, becoming the youngest national marketing director of that company. And my first check was $8,976. So it was a network marketing company back then. And I thought, why would anyone go to college if you make this money as an entrepreneur? Because it didn't make logical sense. And so that started a career in sales and marketing. And then, of course, got involved in corporate America. And God just opened up the floodgates for us to do obviously, we had a lot of failures and hiccups along the way, houses burning down, diagnosis, a lot of setback stories that are common, I guess, to people. But it was never about the setback. It was always about the story of the comeback. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Where I have a motto that I said, when you have a setback, don't take a step back, but get ready for your comeback. Because sometimes a setback is a setup by God to rethink, reboot, recalibrate, or even reinvent your life. And so we've had 7 recessions and we've reinvented a number of times. But in the process of that, every time we've had a setback, we've come back even stronger.
Yeah. Yeah. Powerful. I mean, there's so much. Like my brain is like, "Ooh, I want to ask her this question. I know. Ask her this question. I want to ask her this question." Like, how much time do we have? We might have to make this like a 2-part podcast because I have so many questions. But I think what really shined through for me with you, just hearing that little bit of you sharing, is this belief aspect that you have, this rooted faith that you have, but also the mindset because of that faith. And I think that's where all of that started for you, even as, was it 17, you said, when you started?
Yes.
And
I started working for my dad, but even before that, I grew up in a faith-based home, which meant that, having a preacher for a dad, that comes with love and hate and happiness and sadness. And I grew up in a feeling like I always had to be perfect.
yeah.
Then I cried a lot during that season of why do I have to always be on? Why do I always have to be perfect? It's never good enough. As I got older, I realized that was a gift, because I watch so many people now who are operating, scaling, or even going from scale to sale in their businesses. They're good at doing some things in life, but their self-talk is treacherous because they've never had a coach or a dad or a mom that says, yes, you can, get up, do it again. Yes, you can, get up, do it again. And there's a movie called Miracle. It's a hockey movie, and it's about the USA hockey team. And there's a scene in there, not to be a spoiler, but there's a scene where the coach says, get up again. And I mean, ever since I was 2 years old, even when I was being potty trained, my mom and dad put me on the toilet, and I knew they just wanted me to go poo poo. They said, you're not getting up until you go. You're going to go. You're going to go. Right. I sat in there, and they, of course, went about their business. And I was sitting in there, and I just started singing at 2. And I was singing, Jesus loves me. They were like, jackpot. But they came running in, and what they realized is not only was I doing the deal, but I had perfect pitch. And they were like, sing that again. Do it again. And I sang, and as a little girl, because I was healed of cystic fibrosis, the doctors called it a modern day miracle. But when I was healed, not only were my lungs restored, but God gave me 5.5 octaves. And so my mom and dad kept reminding me of the gift of God that was within me. Baby, it might be hard. I went through divorce. I went through suicidal depression, a lot of things as a country music singer. But they kept saying, baby, get up, do it. Yeah. You've got this. God has dreams that he's given you. And that's where coaching and consulting and podcast hosting is so powerful, because you get to be that coach to your audience. You get to be that voice that many of them have not heard, saying, get up, you can do this. Yeah. If I can do it, you can do it. If I can do it, you can do it. And it really does create an incredible transference of information, of faith, of wisdom. The key is to stay plugged into those voices. Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. I was just talking to a client the other day who, she's a friend and a peer and a client, but she was just saying that she just feels like she's on an island, all alone as an entrepreneur. And I think that is something that a lot of entrepreneurs feel. And honestly, they are, because they're not reaching out to have a peer-led group or have a community or a mentorship or a coach or a mastermind. And I know for me, I've had a coach one way or the other for the last 16 years, and I still have one today. Like, I can't imagine my life without having a coach of some sort or a mentor that can speak, like you said, life over me and speak positivity over me and tell me the hard things. It's not just about always being positive, but tell me the hard things that I need to hear to get me to move forward. Because when we're in our own heads, we can't see our blind spots, right? We can't see those areas of opportunity for growth. And it's just, I really don't know how people do it without it. It's like I tell people all the time who don't have family close by when they're raising their littles. I'm like, I don't know how you do it without having, your mom close by, your dad close by. Like, I grew up, blessed by that, and blessed that my in-laws were here as well. So we need each other. And I'm sure you see this with your clients too. Like, they just kind of come in and they've been trying so hard to do it on their own. Well, and it is, unfortunately, it's isolation by choice. And, not to get all spiritual, but it's what's different about Fuel by Fire is we are very high ticket, but we do everything on a faith-based model. So we go back, my faith believes in scripture. Yeah. So we go back to scripture and say, okay, it's been around for thousands of years. It's proven principles. Where does that come from? Well, that hiding thing actually comes from the Garden of Eden. Yeah. Is if you feel like you're not quite measuring up, you tend to recluse.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's dangerous to recluse because you left to your own vices. It's like a playground of negativity or of the voices that would try to dog you out, wear you out, put you down, say you're too skinny, you're too fat, you're not good enough, nobody's listening to you. Listen, I did before webinars were, and I'm 53 years old. So I have been around for a little bit, and especially in the world of webinars. And when Kajabi, nobody had even heard of Kajabi. I was putting 23,000 people into a Kajabi funnel, and it helped me build a $350 million company in 3.5 years. And it was because I was leaning into technology that I knew was going to pave the way in the future. And I had hired a coach at 40. And I had said to them, I need someone to really, I've had an amazing 40 years. I've been with 5 US presidents, sung at the Olympics. I was playing basketball for Junior Olympics. I mean, I had just a crazy, amazing life up to 40. And I said, and we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaches. I don't know of a single athlete that tries to do sports without a qualified coach. And of course, singing at the Olympics, I got to be surrounded by the best of the best when I was up there and singing underneath the torch and that. And I remember I was like a little reporter and I was like, so tell me what got you here? And they would always go back to my team, my coaches. And I learned some of their regimens, like the amount of salt that they had that morning could be the difference between 1/1000th of a second. Like they are so meticulously looking at every analytic of their body, of their mind, of their performance. And it's the coaches that are helping them do that to get them to become a, gold medalist. And what we do as moms and what we do as leaders is sometimes we think, I got it. I'll take a free course and then I'll figure it out. Right. And that's not the model. Success leaves clues, right?
Right.
And the most successful people on the planet, they are in rooms that are smarter than them. They are around people that are better than them, pulling them to a place that they've never been before.
Yeah. I say all the time, like we would never expect a champion, football team, national championship football team to get there without a coach, right? And without their team, we wouldn't expect the Olympian to be an Olympic gold medalist without the coach. But yet, and we even invest in coaches for our little league sports for our kids, but we won't do the same thing for ourselves. But we expect for us to operate at that level of a champion without the support. And it's just like, we need to have that shift in our heads, right? We need to just be able to reach out, like you said, and seek out those rooms that can help us to level up. And I know that's what you have with your communities. So I know someone's listening right now, and maybe they're kind of in that season where they've realized, whether they're coming out of the fog from the pandemic. I feel like we still are talking about that, but it was a really eye-opening period for a lot of people, especially as entrepreneurs, or maybe they were in corporate and now they're trying to make that shift into entrepreneurship. What advice would you have for someone they're feeling that tug, the Lord's kind of pressing in and like, okay, it's time for you to kind of bust out and do this thing that I've been calling you to do. And they're just feeling a little fear about that.
I wake up every day, and part of the and I breezed over it. But in 2017, when I had a dream, and in that dream, God said, will you say yes? Will you sacrifice your life? Will you say yes? Or will you turn and walk away? Will you say yes to me today? I thought I was writing another song. I recorded 5 CDs. And so I thought, oh, this is going to be on my next CD. I went to my office, and it was like 3:00 in the morning. And I went to my office, and I was quickly awakened to that this is not a song. This is a request. And at that time, we were making more money than we had ever made before. We were winning awards, traveling around the world, doing safaris, the perfect selfie couple in the swimming pools. Look at how God has blessed us. And that day I knew, wait a minute. And I was dissatisfied. I was making a lot of money, but I felt like there was something I was being called to that was more. I felt like I was successful, but not necessarily optimizing my level of significance. And being raised in a missionary home and a pastor's home, my grandpa was a missionary, had a Bible college that sent missionaries all around the world. I knew I'm good at making money. I'm great at building teams, and I'm great at helping small business owners build companies. But there's got to be more than this. It's got to be more than cars and diamonds and handbags. It's got to be about something that God would look down and say, now you're doing my work.
Right.
Now I'm involved in that. So that morning, I waited for my husband to get up. And when he did, I said, baby, I had a dream and I think I'm supposed to step out of my position. And we had been praying about him just stepping out more because he's a COO. He's been COO for a lot of really big corporations. And I said, I really think this might be a season where God's pulling you out. And so we agreed that I would step out. So I would go to my office every morning and I'd get into my office and I would just sit down and I would say, good morning, Holy Spirit. What would you have of me today? And I would wait until I heard something. And in that same thing, it was scary. It was like crazy. I was about 40, I guess I was 48 years old. And I'm thinking, this is the prime of my income earning career in corporate America. I'm just coming into my own right now. And you are asking me to pull out. And I didn't know how long it would be. And so that became my ritual is I would get up and sometimes he would say, go to Walmart aisle 13. And I'd be like, okay, this is crazy. Maybe I just had bad pizza last night, but I just practiced obeying.
Yeah.
Not trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Which you're saying, there's a lot of people that feel like I'm supposed to be shifting. We help a lot of people in their exit, get out of one thing into another. And that is a volatile time because your mind plays games on you. You try to figure it out. But if it is a God move, you won't be able to figure it out. You have to lean not to your own understanding, but just acknowledge the voice and then say yes. And so if it's as crazy as aisle 13 Walmart, practice obedience to that voice that's bigger than your voice. And so I would go to, I remember one time I went to Walmart and I'm standing there going, I'm on aisle 13. What am I waiting for? And here comes this sweet mom and a little girl, and they've got a bag of potato chips and salsa. And they walked up to aisle 13 and I said, hey, and remember, I'm giving all my money away. So I'm finding ways. We fed 10,000 homeless people at Christmas. We were extravagantly giving. And I said, hey, can I buy your groceries for you? And they're like, no. And I said, no, I know this sounds weird, but I think God sent me here to buy the groceries.
Right.
And instantly the mom starts crying. And she said, we don't have any money. And this was all we could afford. We did not know how we were going to eat this week.
Wow.
What's cool about that is, yes, I'm a businesswoman. I'm an entrepreneur. I can go out and produce amazing things, but why? And so for 2.5 years of our life, we lived in that season of nothing. Like once we gave it all away and then we didn't have cars for none of our rich friends, none of our team, nobody knew what God was asking us to do. They would say, hey, you want to go to Perry's for steak? And we'd be like, yeah, why don't you come pick us up so we can have more time together? What we didn't say is because we don't have cars anymore. Yeah. But in 2.5 years of crazy faith, of doing what we didn't have an example. I mean, even in scripture, the rich young ruler said no when Jesus asked him to give it away. And so we went through this season of extravagant generosity, and it changed our life forever. It humbled us. One day I woke up and I said, God, why? I had a pastor. We were very big givers in our church, some of the biggest givers. And suddenly we didn't have anything more to give. And they were like, what is going on? And we explained, and they said, that can't be God. Why would God ask you to do that when you use your money to advance the kingdom? So that night I went home and I said, God, why would you ask us to give all our money away when we use our money to advance your kingdom? And it was like I heard, say that again. And I said, we use our money to advance your kingdom. Say it again. We use our money to advance your kingdom. And he said, Staci, he said, doesn't that sound just a little bit narcissistic? You think I need your money to advance my kingdom? He said, I don't need your money. Yeah. I need your yes. I need your obedience. Yeah. And so sometimes even people who are not of faith, and I totally get that. And I'm on a lot of podcasts, and there's a lot of people who don't have faith, but they still feel the tug because you may not believe in God, but he still believes in you. And he's trying to get you to that sweet spot where you have peace and profits, where you can be in the midst of a crazy storm, like some of the things that are happening around the world right now. And you know it's crazy. You look to your left and people are going through divorce. You look to your right and there's wars and pestilence, but you can still have peace because you know I'm in the sweet spot of God's favor and of my calling and my purpose. And in that, there is total peace.
Yeah. Yeah. I experienced just a small bit of what you're talking about. And for the listeners that have been following me on the show, they know this, but God called me out of my 16-year career in indirect selling, very successful, one of the top leaders in the company. And it was just one of those moments where he was like, it's time to pack up shop. And I'm like, what? This doesn't make any sense. I wrestled with him, asked him all the questions, and it did come down to this obedience, right? Obedience trumps comfort all day long. And I remember after I left and like all the people that watched, because it made no sense on paper. Very rarely does it, right? When he's calling you out of something or into something. And I'm like, this just doesn't make any sense. But I just had this overwhelming peace that even though it was super hard for me to do this and for lots of reasons, but I just had this overwhelming peace about it that even though he hasn't told me where I'm going, he's still revealing. Like, I would love the big blueprint. Like, Lord, give me the full blueprint. I'm a worker bee. I will do what you tell me to do. Can you just give me the full blueprint? And so that was my prayer for a long time. And then I'm like, okay, I'm giving up. He's not giving me that. So just give me my next step. And I would have people call me and they would just, how did you do that? And I knew the story was bigger than me, just like yours is bigger than you. I knew that, me leaving this career was not about me. It was about others and about him and about his grace in that season. And I just couldn't explain it to people, the peace that I had. And I could see it all over your face too. Like, even though it was super hard for you to do, a lot of the things that you did, you just had this overwhelming peace. And so, but you worked through that, right? You took your next steps, even when it didn't make sense. And I think for someone who's trying to transition out, and maybe it doesn't make sense on paper, but you are feeling that tug, like you said, whether you are of the faith or not, you just have to take your next step. Mm-hmm. And he'll
literally. I wish, you wish you woulda, coulda. I wish I coulda had those nights of laying on the pillows, snot, makeup, tears, because people look at our life now and we are in abundance. We owe no man anything but to love him. We are debt free. We have more property. We use our properties for rescuing and we are on the other side. Yeah, but we lived our life in that struggle of making a lot of money, but still not enough. Making millions of dollars, but still not enough. And it'll never be enough until you're in that sweet spot. But I wish I had the pictures of the struggle, because the struggle is where most people quit. In fact, I quit. I was fetal position, crying in my pillow, slammed the door. I quit. I can't do this. 1 month after I did it, and this is why it was so big, my husband comes and says, "You're not going to believe this." But I want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Don't give it to me. He said, I had the same dream, and I think we're supposed to go all in, both of us. So after 1 month, he quit his corporate position and we went all in for 2.5 years. We gave away everything we had. The only thing that would not sell was our house. And we didn't know it then, but 18 months, our house wouldn't sell. One buyer came and said, I want everything and everything in it. And we were like, this is just God. This is going to help us. It'll be our pad. And that fell through. And what we didn't know was that allowed us to still have our furniture. So we kept selling our furniture to make it every month. We were selling lights and pictures. And so for 2.5, you don't realize how much excess you're in until you give it all away. Yeah. Because you're like, oh my gosh, I have so many pillows. I have more pillows than a bed. Like, this is crazy. You're living in excess, but you're complaining about not enough. Yeah. And so after 2.5 years, on my birthday, this is crazy. I was at a Tony Robbins event and I had never been to a Tony Robbins event. It was freaking me out a little bit because there was all kinds of things I was not used to and words that we don't allow in our house. And I called my husband. I said, baby, this is not where I want to be for my 50th birthday. I thank you. They had me in VIP with Tony and all kinds of front row. It was an amazing experience. And it was an amazing event. But it wasn't what was filling up my spirit of what I wanted to be transitioning into. And that day, I called my husband. I was crying. I don't want to be here. And I ran into a man that 3 years before that event, I had led to the Lord. And he bumped into me and he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I don't know." I had tears in my eyes. I'm trying to figure. I said, "It's my birthday today, and I'm 50, and I this is my Jubilee year, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be here." And he goes, "Don't leave." He goes, "I've been with Tony. I think he said 15 years. I'm on crew with Tony." And he said, it's really hard the first 3 days because he wears you down. He said, "Don't quit because this room needs you." It's not what you're going to pull out of the room although you will. He said, there's men and women in here that they need somebody who's operated at 9-figure plus success. And they need to hear they need your perspective. They don't know what you know. And so I stayed. And that day we got a call from a lady that saw our house for sale. And she said, can I buy your house, cash offer, but I need it in 20 days, which meant a 20-day turnaround on a house is fast, let alone Christmas. So we couldn't go through the normal Christmas thing. That was 2019. We sold the house. We knew that God was going to still have us giving generously. We went and got a RV. January 1, 2020, we drove off the lot in our RV, not knowing that that was the protection of God to give us the best year of our lives. We were in the mountains, we were fishing, we were hiking, we were climbing. And it was like the obedience prepared the way for us to be in a secret place where the rest of the world was in cray-cray. Right. We were locked and loaded in this sweet spot of peace that passes all understanding. And so very shortly after that, God opened up the floodgates, and it has been a very, very blessed journey, more blessed than anything we've ever done, including all the other companies. And so we're grateful for the suffering.
Yeah.
A lot of people want to get to the blessing, but they don't want to go through the suffering and go all the way back. If you do know scripture, you know that the biggest blessing on planet Earth never happened without immense suffering. And so embrace it, say yes to it, but then ask, what would you have of me today? Because I do not want to stay here any longer than necessary. If you're going through hell, don't stop, get up, get through it, learn what you have to as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, you're not alone. I mean, we all have a story. This is why I love this podcast, to bring people on to hear the stories, not just the success stories, but the mess before the success. And because that makes you relatable, and that makes people do have hope, brings them hope to get up and do what they need to do. Hey friend. So you have been trying to make some shifts this year. Maybe you set some resolutions and you're just feeling stuck. You don't feel like you're making progress, or you're just not sure what to do. And you've heard me say this before, but being stuck is a mindset, not a position. And this is where a coach comes in to support you. Because here's what I know to be true about you, friend. If you could have done it alone, you would have already done it, period. And as a life coach and a certified PDP professional, I specialize in using a research-based personality and performance survey called the ProScan to illuminate how your unique personality and natural strengths, your work and life environments, are influencing real-time performance. So here's what you need to do. Go to the link in the show notes and book your free clarity call to learn more about how I can support you in your goals. I can't wait to illuminate your strengths, cultivate your confidence, and elevate your life. So if someone's listening and maybe they're just kind of starting out their business and they're trying to get to like that first, let's just say 100K in their first year, like what are some things that you kind of coach or help your entrepreneurs to kind of really focus on? Because there's so much distraction out there. That was actually my devotional this morning, was distraction being a blessing blocker, because there's so many things, competing for our time, especially as mompreneurs, right? We're trying to build a business. They're trying to build a business with their family, as a mom, as a wife, and all the things. And so they may have very limited time to work on this business, or maybe they are trying to, like you said, transition out of corporate into entrepreneurship, and they're still working this full-time business. So what would you say are some really key things for them to focus in on to shoot to that first 100K?
So I'm going to give 4. It's called our MADE model, MADE. Okay. But I do want to give something free to your listeners that I think will help. Okay. We do something called the sweet spot audit. A lot of people spend quite a bit of time trying to find out what to do, how to do it, and not quite being in their sweet spot of what they're best at. Yep. And what produces the most energy, what allows for the most health, allows for like we teach legacy wealth, which means working with your family, working with your children. My husband and I, we are 6 feet apart, 24 hours a day, unless he's on his tractor, and he just won't get me a buddy seat on his tractor. He says he needs a little space. So I want to do the sweet spot audit, and we can send them, if they register for the free chapter of my book, I will also give them the sweet spot audit, because that will answer that question. But there's something they can do for that $100,000 growth. If you are somewhere in that space and maybe you've just gotten started, or you're already at, $5,000, $6,000 a month, but you know that there's that next comma that you want to get to. You want to get to seven figures. And in between that, you got to hit six. It'll be the hardest leap. The first six figures is the hardest leap of your life until you try to get to your first seven figures. First seven figures is the hardest. Once you hit $1 million, doing 5 million and 7 million, it's a breeze because you've already got the systems for $1 million growth in place. The first 100 million, you'll feel like, or even 8 figures, you'll feel like but every stage of growth requires different infrastructure. What got you here, wherever that is, whatever level of growth you're at right now, will not get you there. That's why you've got to invest and say, number one, you got to get around people that are there. So 2 weeks ago, I invested in a very, very high level CEO mastermind, but you have to be at 7, 8, or 9 figures or beyond. You can't even get in. The reason why is because there's a different conversation that happens in that room than what happens in a startup room. It doesn't matter. And so we love whatever room you're in. Just remember, whatever got you here will not get you to that next plateau. So there's a simple acronym that we use, and it's called MADE. Number 1, is your idea monetizable? Because just because you love it, and just because it gives you the goosies, and just because you want to write that book, does not mean people are going to buy it. You've got to do your research to say, and that's where you can ask a coach, hey, is this an idea that you think could be monetized? When somebody comes to me and says, you know what, I want to write my book, and this is the first book I've ever written, and I'm thinking about quitting my job and just writing the book. I'm like, you know what? You probably want to keep your job, write a book, because the average book only sells about 100. That's not going to put food on your table for your family if you're a single mama. So you do your current job, and let me show you how to maximize time. We built a 7-figure company, Fueled by Fire, the first year while I was running a major telecom company. So I was able to, and the company knew it, and it was totally on the up and up, but I used my lunch hour and I used 7 p.m. at night to do my coaching. So there's a way that you can maximize your time to make sure what you're doing is monetizable, but make sure that the product offering and that the idea and your skill set lines up with something people will pay for. That's the first thing. So it's a little bit of a wake-up call. And you might need to go, well, maybe not the book, but what if you turn that into a coaching program? Now, I can show you how to do a coaching program and make 6 figures a month, but the book will become maybe a freebie, or it might become a lead magnet. Number 2 is MA. So the A is accessible. Are people Googling, searching for, looking for access to what you offer? So right now, Google is king. So they're searching. What are the keywords that they're searching for? Are they looking for a mompreneur podcast? Yes, they are. They're looking because there's moms out there that are starving and hungering for somebody who can relate to them. So you look and say, do people want access to what I'm offering? Maybe we've got a client right now that they have a product called Freedom Wand. And really, you would think, what in the world? But it's a bottom wiper for people who are obese, people who have back issues. And it's a long stick that wipes the bottom. And so is there a market for that? Yes. Yes. In more ways than one, they need access. But you've got to ask yourself, are people wanting access to what I've got? The next one is D. And this is where you start to move in from profits into peace, because you want both peace and profits. D is duplication. Is what I'm doing duplicatable so that a team can one day take over? So I can step out. Otherwise, you have a personality-driven business and you will have a job instead of running a company. A company you can step away from, be equity owner, you can sit on your beach or wherever you want to be and still provide sound leadership. But if you have to be the marketing team and you have to be and you do for the first few years of a business, but you want to make sure that the long-term strategy is duplicatable to a sales team, to advocates, to a good finance team, to build infrastructure around it. And that's how you go from scale to sell as well. And the final one is E, is can you create expansion from this company? Is it something? So we're talking about the first 100,000. If you have these 4 things in mind, you probably have a short-term business. Why build a business that you can't do long-term for legacy? So when we talk about E, it could be evergreen. Can it run on its own? Of course, that could be evergreen systems like ClickFunnels and things like that. Or is it evergreen? Is it something my family would want to do? I have so many 8-figure clients that get to a place, they build this massive company. Their kids want nothing to do with it because it's so stressful.
Yeah.
So make sure that what you're building is made for peace and profits.
I love that. I really just love how simple that is. And I think the listeners are really going to have to take the time, like carve out the time to actually go through each of those letters and really think about, like you said, tough love. Sometimes our passions aren't always the things that need to be your next business. It could just be your passion. It's something you can do and volunteer, or, just something that just fills your cup, but it's not something that you can monetize. And I see this all the time. Like everything has to become a business, and some things just aren't going to go well as a business. And so you have to look yourself in the mirror sometimes, and your businesses and your brands, and figure out, like, if you're solving someone's problem, like you just, the example you just gave was so amazing, because it's a problem someone has and she's providing that solution for them. So if there's something that's bothering you, find a solution for it. And then you could share that with someone else, and they'll probably want that too. I mean, we see this all over the internet. But thank you for sharing those just really, really simple tips. And we'll put links to all the things that you offer in the show notes so they can go and get a copy of your book as well. But your book is called, the newest one, you've written 8. I would love to have you back on just to talk about that process, because it's really interesting. The people I've interviewed this entire month have all been either launching a new book or have a book. And we've been talking about the book. I'm all right, Lord, is this what you're saying? You want me to write a book? Like, I know I have one in there, but I'm not sure this is the time. But he keeps bringing y'all on here. So maybe that is what he's trying to tell me. But so it's called Fueled by Fire, Becoming a Woman of Courage, Faith, and Influence. So is this like kind of your personal story also written into this book, or kind of give the audience a little bit of intel?
It does have a lot of the story. I am a story curator.
Yeah.
God, it's an amazing journey. People always say, man, we should do a reality show on your life, because everything, I learned early on that everything is a testimony.
Yeah.
It's good, it's bad, it's ugly, whether you look pretty in it or you don't. It's a testimony for someone else. And the mountain that I have had to clip through and break through what seemed to be insurmountable mountains. It's become a highway for other people to just breeze through, because I, as a woman, led through some really tough places in telecom, really tough places in healthcare. And I don't believe it's because it's tough for women. I just don't buy into that. I refuse to believe that because I'm a woman, I'm not going to allow my psyche to buy into the fact that I don't care if they are against me. If God is for me, who could be against me? I will find a way. I will not give up, let up, or shut up until God takes me up. And we've got to get that resilience into people again, that they don't keep going, well, but it's because I came from, I don't have an education. I didn't go to college. I don't have a pedigree. My parents weren't rich. And yet, my God, what a blessed life I've lived, because I refuse to buy in to the banter. And that's what this book is about. It's like, you are fueled by fire. I wrote a book, I think it's behind me here, Unleashed. And the publisher, so this book is not for the faint at heart, because it is highly spiritual, and it talks about spirits in the workplace and breaking chains that bind and spiritual warfare and all that. But it told a lot of my story in there, and about us giving our money away and all of that. And a publisher came to me and said, and so we had a publishing company for quite some time where we help people self-publish their books. And so I had not worked with a publisher by choice, because we didn't really need to, but a publisher came and said, listen, we will give you a pretty sizable advance if you will write for us a book like that, but maybe not all the spiritual stuff, but very much faith-based women in the marketplace. What is a woman of faith? How does she edge her way in? How does she be like, I always say, like Jesus, who seeped through the crevices of the marketplace? He didn't do his work in the temple. He did his work in the marketplace. And so I had 64% male following at that time because of my corporate career. And I was like, okay, well, if that's what you want. And I didn't like the name Fueled by Fire, because I Googled it, and it was like some heavy metal devil rock band. And they're like, okay, I don't want people to look it up and think that's what I'm associated with. And they said, why don't you redeem that name for us?
Wow.
You believe that you are fueled by the Holy Spirit. You have not done all this stuff on your own. You're fueled by the Holy Spirit. So I meditated on it. I was like, okay, we'll do it. Well, then we trademarked it. And I was like, well, if we're going to go with that, and I'm going to be launching a company, I'm going to call the company Fueled by Fire. So we had to work out this deal with the publisher that we owned the trademark, but they could own the book. And it really became, and this is even when someone writes a book, write it with intention. Don't just write a book because you want to get your story out there. Write a book because you want to start a movement. And if you're going to start a movement, make the movement worth following.
Yeah.
And so Fueled by Fire does tell my story. It speaks very directly to women. However, we have men. In fact, we have one that right now just came to our last free 5-day launch. And he said, hey, men, I know this says woman on here. He said, but this has wrecked my life. And that was a man in the marketplace who was very successful in the financial world, and yet was laden with addictions and hurt and pain. And he said, this book helped me get free. I want every guy to read this. If it's not for you, then it might be for your wife. But he said, it's wrecked me. And so, yeah, it's a book that I'm very, very happy that I had the privilege of penning. And yet we've got one coming out that's going to have my husband and I called, well, I won't tell you what it's called, but it's about the kingdom and marketplace and being a leader worth following in the marketplace.
Yeah. Did I see that you and your husband have a podcast together too? Did I see that on your website? Is that part of the book? I'm not going to say what the name of it is, but I think it's part of the book. But
no, but Epiphany at the Ranch, we actually had a podcast called Fuel by Fire. I've had a number of what I would call seasons. One season was all about telecom, and I brought in some of the biggest CEOs of all different kinds of companies because we worked with all those companies in our telecom company. I've had one called M Women, which is our nonprofit organization, and I had the Blessed Life. And so I've done podcasting all about the message specific that I felt led that would run at least, 12 months. Yeah. Well, we got, to be honest with you, really tired of doing podcasting. And we were like, God, we said we want to do peace and profits. And right now we've lost that love and feeling. And so we were going to take a reprieve from podcasting. Yeah. And a lady, actually it was Carolyn. You met Carolyn, my assistant. And she said, I told her, I said, Carolyn, I think we're going to scrub the podcast, at least for a season. Like we're just feeling like labor, and we want to do everything because we love it. Right. So she said, oh no, don't do that. We love hearing what's going on in the ranch. And I was like, it's a business podcast. It's not even about the ranch. And she said, but we love the stuff about the ranch. Yeah. So I told Larry that night. And then we do church at our cabin here at Miracle Mountain. And a lady came and her husband, and she said, EATR. Like, I was like, yes, what is that? And she said, at the ranch, she said, you guys should start a podcast about all the funny things that go on at the ranch here and how they correlate with all those business things you talk about.
Yeah. Connecting those dots. Yeah. Yeah.
So we did it on Facebook Live. We do it every Tuesday. We don't go through Libsyn and all the other things. We don't do all the editing. It is raw. Dogs walk through the back, things fall over in the middle of it. But for whatever reason, God is using it to help people see the real, raw, relevant side of what we do. And so we do love it. It's on YouTube as well. And we're gonna keep doing that. So the Fuel by Fire, everything that we do links back to, of course, Fuel by Fire and the business principles and the life principles that we teach.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm gonna have to go check that out. I mean, I just think people are done with the perfection marketing. Like they just want real, they want raw, they want someone that's just going to give them all the things. And they're not expecting, at least what I see from my eyes, they don't expect me to show up, always put together, always this, because they don't relate to that, especially women. They don't relate to perfection. They relate to the messy bun and getting it done type of style. So I can't wait to go check that out. So if you could, just as we kind of wrap up, if you could share one thing with all the mompreneurs that are listening today, what's one thing you would want to make sure they understood?
I'd go back to wake up every morning. I do it now before I even open my eyes, before I put my feet on the ground, before I look at my phone, before anything, before even the juices start. When you start moving, the serotonin and norepinephrine start going off in your body. So it starts creating thoughts. Your reticular activating system gets triggered, and all of that. Before any of that, the minute I wake up, I say, good morning, Holy Spirit, what would you have of me today? And I would. And it could trump my entire schedule. And it could be a test of obedience to see if I'll pivot. But oftentimes I will have an idea, or a face comes before me, or I'll have a word that I might think, okay, well, that's going to surface later today. But I want His will above my own. I want to not just get up and, the days I had both my kids back to back, and we homeschooled our kids, and while I was running all these companies. So it was a lot. And when you have functional twins, it's, one's running off and the other one's pooping up the back of their diaper at the same time while you're trying to do the phones and
phone call. Yeah.
all of those things. I put myself in a closet one time because a really important call came through. I knew it would be a short call. So the kids, my daughter was in her high chair and she was watching Dora the Explorer. Was a big deal then. And she was sitting there watching Dora the Explorer, and he was running around, but he was fine. So I went in and I just ran into the closet to have a quiet space to answer the phone call. And I answered it and ran back out. My son had taken one of those big jumbo Sharpies.
No.
A brand new ivory grand piano for 4 days. And he colored the entire side, all the keys and the legs by the time I got out. I don't know if he was waiting and just the devil made him do it or what. But I came out crying, and all I could think of was when, do you remember my big fat Greek wedding?
Yes.
And they used Windex for everything. I ran and got Windex, and thankfully it was so fresh that it all came off. But yeah, you just got to do the thing. And sometimes you need a voice bigger than your own. And for me, that's not a human voice first. While I have coaches and I have big alignments, the first voice I want to know is, God, what would you have of me today? And allow yourself to be at peace. If he tells you today, I just want you to cancel your schedule and take a nap, mama.
Yeah.
Faith sometimes is not doing. It's just being willing to rest when your body needs it, your kids need it. And those big leaps of yes, sometimes are the big moves that put you into the next season that he's been wanting to get you into.
Yeah. Yeah. Super powerful. Where's the best place for people to connect with you, Staci? Is it on Instagram? Is it Facebook? I know we'll have your website and everything in the show notes, but
at Staci Wallace, pretty much across all social. So at Staci Wallace, Staci with an I. But that made, after I'd said it, we are every 6 to 8 weeks. And I know that technically, if you're trying to make money off people, this is not what you do, is tell them that you do it every 6 to 8 weeks. But every 6 to 8 weeks, we do a free 5 days of intense business coaching online, because we are a high ticket program. We start at $23,000 and go up over $120,000. So I know that not everybody will be able to do what we do. We obviously we have 130 courses and that we do a 12-month university style. So what we feel like God wants us to do for the general masses is go and just open up our hearts and give freely, not the cheap stuff. My notebooks and my workbooks are in like a lot when we give them out. But I would encourage everyone, because I do talk about that made for profits. We talk about the sweet spot audit. We talk about the 1% method of micro progress. Go to fbfchallenge.com and you can register there. You'll also get the book and all the other things, but that will give you an opportunity just to sit and receive some free business coaching that a lot of people pay a lot of money for, absolutely free. And then if you want more help, then we give every person a free advocate for a week, which is a certified coach that they can just ask questions to. Here's my business. Is it a good idea? Happy to do that. And obviously, when it comes from another coach, we work with that coach to make sure that you're getting what you need. It might be a question that we say, go back to your coach, ask this question so that we can help them help you. And really, that's what our heart is just to see people get to where they can be the influencers. We need a voice of a new generation. So fbfchallenge.com, or of course, you can go to staciwallace.com and everything's there.
Awesome. Well, I know they're probably already on their phones going to that website and grabbing all the goodies. And I just really appreciate your time today to come on and share just so vulnerably. And also just with this, we'll have parts of this video being shown just on social, but if people could just see the joy that exudes from you and the excitement and the passion that you have for this, I just really appreciate that. And it's just very, very evident. So thank you for the work that you're doing for the kingdom, but also for all of the mompreneurs and those that are trying to build their businesses. It's really remarkable. So thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
It's an honor. I appreciate it.
All right, friends. Well, I will catch you on the next episode. And you know that I'm believing in you always. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.